There is a solemnity that rests upon the brow of the aged, not merely because the years have worn down the frame, but because eternity begins to cast its shadow upon time. The final year of life is not always heralded by trumpets, nor does it arrive with thunderclaps. More often it tiptoes into the room like a quiet guest, unannounced yet unmistakable. To discern its approach is not to flirt with morbid curiosity, but to honor the sacred passage between the now and the everlasting. When we look upon our elders, we are not just observing old age, we are beholding souls who may be standing at the edge of glory, waiting for the call that shall not be denied. It is in this holy awareness that we consider the signs not to fear death, but to prepare hearts for the embrace of forever. When the flame flickers and the shadow lengthens, there is a season in every life where the vigor of youth has long since ebbed, and the strength of middle age has passed like the morning mist. What remains is a sacred stillness, a hush that descends not with dread, but with divine gentleness. The body, that once leapt with vitality, now begins to echo with the slow footsteps of mortality. The days stretch long, but the energy to fill them diminishes. This is not a mere slowing down, nor is it only the gentle advance of age. This is the flickering of the flame before it dies into the eternal light. In such a time we must observe with tenderness the physical shell that houses the eternal soul. The elderly begin to sleep more not simply out of weariness, but as if their bodies are rehearsing for a deeper rest. The appetite wanes, not only because of sickness, but as though the desires of the flesh are losing their grip, loosening their tether to this earthly realm. Activities that once brought joy now seem distant, like songs fading on the wind. There is no sadness in this retreat, only the solemn hush of a traveler nearing the end of a long journey. The strength of limbs once used for work, for walking, for holding children and building homes, begins to falter. Movements slow, balance becomes uncertain, and the very breath, once deep and full of youth's ambition, becomes shallow and precious. Yet even this weakness is not defeat, but transition. It is the body saying, I have borne enough, I have carried the soul this far, now I must gently release it to its eternal destination. We must not look upon this with fear or anxiety, but with awe. For when the outer man perishes, the inner man is being renewed day by day. The flickering of the candle is not the end of light, it is the moment before it is swallowed up in a greater brilliance, in a realm where no shadows fall and no darkness dares to linger. But before that great translation, the signs are clear to those who choose to see with more than human eyes. When the elderly begin to detach from the natural rhythm of daily living, when they rest more, eat less, withdraw gently, and gaze long out of windows in silence, let not the heart misinterpret these things. It is not despair, it is not depression, often it is divine preparation. The soul knows when it is nearing home, and it begins to let go of the temporary in favor of the eternal. The eyes that once scanned the room now linger on unseen things. The ears seem tuned not to the conversations of men, but to the whispers of angels. There are moments when a loved one, nearing the end, will pause in speech, as though listening to someone no one else can hear. They will speak slowly, gently, and with that strange certainty that is beyond understanding. Some speak of light, of voices, of beautiful scenes not imagined, but glimpsed. These are not dreams, these are previews. The flickering flame casts long shadows, and those shadows point not to death, but to the door through which the soul must pass to reach the light. In these sacred days or months, it becomes vital that we as caretakers, children, friends, and family recognize the signs without panic. The goal is not to stop the flame from flickering, for all candles must complete their burn, but to surround that light with honor, comfort, and love until its very last breath. Let us sit beside them, not in anxiety but in adoration, not with busyness but with stillness. For we are in the presence of a soul being gently unmoored from its earthly harbor, and what of the fear of death? Ah, but for the righteous death is but a doorway. The world fears the extinguishing of the flame, but those who know the light of the world understand that death is not darkness, it is dawn. The flickering of the flame is not its failure, but its fulfillment. It has done what it was meant to do. It has lit the way, warmed the hearts of others, and now it is being called higher, into the eternal blaze of divine glory. One must also consider the beauty of humility in these waning days. The elderly person may no longer wish to fight for independence, not because they are defeated, but because they are at peace. There is a grace in letting go. Pride fades, and in its place comes trust in others, trust in providence, and trust in the unseen hands that carry the soul when the body no longer can. In these moments the world may see weakness, but heaven sees strength. We must resist the temptation to revive what is meant to be released. Let the flickering flame speak. Let the lengthening shadows fall without fear. Let the quietness be filled not with television or noise, but with prayer, with psalms, with tender words, and the reading of holy truth. These are the final comforts of a saint about to cross the river. They need not morphine as much as they need music from above. They need not distraction, but devotion, and when the moment comes, whether in a year, or a month, or a day, let no one say the flame died. No, it did not die. It simply rose caught up in the wind of the Spirit, drawn into the glory it always longed for. The flickering was but the signal that the lamp was about to be exchanged for everlasting light, and the shadows lengthening were the soft curtain of a stage giving way to the eternal morning. When earthly ties loosen and eternal longings arise, there comes a moment in the life of the aged when the world that once captivated their gaze begins to lose its color, its urgency, and its pull. The things that once stirred excitement now seem distant and pale. The conversations of politics, of markets, of ambitions, become faint echoes in ears now tuned to a greater frequency. The soul begins to unfasten its grip from the temporal, not in despair, but in preparation. It is the sacred loosening of the tent pegs before the dwelling is taken down and moved to a city not built by hands. The laughter of grandchildren, the scent of old books, the taste of familiar meals, all these still bring joy, but not the same kind as before. The joy is gentler now, tinged with a strange nostalgia, as if each moment is being touched for the last time, not with sorrow, but with reverence. It is the farewell of the soul to the stage on which it has long walked, played, wept, and rejoiced. This loosening is not abandonment. The elderly do not stop loving their family. On the contrary, their love often deepens, but the form of love changes. It becomes less possessive, less concerned with control, and more centered on blessing, release, and prayer. They speak fewer words of instruction and more words of legacy. They no longer ask, "What will I do tomorrow?" but rather, "What will you remember when I am gone?" There is a transfer of heart as though they are passing down invisible garments of wisdom, garments woven with tears, forgiveness, patience, and faith. They begin to ask not for new possessions, but for peace. They do not strive for gain, but for reconciliation. That which once caused offense now becomes trivial. That which once brought division now becomes foolishness. They are letting go of grudges, debts, and demands because the eternal draws near, and eternity makes small things smaller and holy things greater. In this season one may find an elderly person quietly returning to journals, letters, and photographs, not to dwell in the past, but to release it. It is the soul's housekeeping before departure. They are making things right not for the applause of men, but for the clear conscience that greets the throne. They seek to forgive, to apologize, to affirm, and to bless. If you listen closely, their stories are no longer just stories, they are parting words, final parables, spiritual seeds they hope will blossom after they are gone. This is not senility, it is spiritual clarity. Their focus has shifted from the ground to the sky. It is during this time that many begin to speak more frequently about heaven, and not with fanciful imagination, but with quiet certainty. They refer to it as one might speak of a house they have not yet entered, but somehow know a homeland vaguely remembered, as though it was once glimpsed before birth. They say things like, "Soon I'll be home," or "I won't be here long," not with dread, but with calmness. Such words are not always heard rightly. Many will respond, "Don't talk like that," or "You'll live many more years," but they are not speaking of years, they are speaking of readiness. They feel a pull from within, a whisper that tells them the time is approaching when the veil will lift, and the face of their Redeemer shall be seen without dimness. Even their prayers change. They do not often ask for healing any more, unless for the sake of those they love. Instead, they pray for peace, for grace, for a good ending, like a sailor praying not for calm seas, but for a safe harbor. Their songs become more eternal in tone. They speak of the cross of mercy, of the blood that covers, and the hope that lies beyond. You will notice their eyes linger longer on the Scriptures, especially the Psalms, the Gospels, and the promises of resurrection. They are not gathering knowledge, they are gathering courage for the final steps of the journey. This inward turning, this holy detachment from the fleeting and embrace of the everlasting, is not to be rushed, nor mourned, nor treated as strange. It is sacred. It is the Spirit's gentle work, separating the soul from its entanglements so that it may soar freely into glory. The soul knows that it cannot carry burdens into the next world, so it begins to lay them down one by one, the regrets, the fears, the trophies, the accolades, even the pain. And when that work is nearly complete, a strange lightness rests upon them, as if they are already halfway gone still here, but not fully, like the setting sun that leaves behind warmth even as it vanishes from sight. For those around them, this shift can be bittersweet. It may feel like losing them before they are gone. But we must understand they are not withdrawing from us. They are drawing nearer to Him. They are not less present. They are more present in the realm where presence is no longer limited by flesh. This is the mystery of departure, that as they loosen their grip on us, they tighten their hold on eternity. And in doing so, they teach us not how to die, but how to live well unto the end. Do not be alarmed if they begin to make unusual statements, such as "I think I've done what I was sent to do," or "I'm ready now." These are not expressions of hopelessness, but of fulfillment. Like Paul, they are saying, "I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." They are not asking for permission to leave, they are announcing that they have heard the whisper of heaven calling their name. And though they may linger for weeks or months more, something within has already crossed over the heart, has stepped beyond even while the body remains. In such moments, let us not try to drag them back into worldly noise. Let us meet them in the quiet. Let us sit beside them and ask them to tell us what they see, what they feel, what they hope. Let us listen more than speak, serve more than fix, love more than fear, for we are witnessing not a fading, but a finishing, not an end, but a beginning. This, then, is the second sign, when the ties to earth loosen and the longings for heaven begin to rise. It is the soul's farewell to dust and its holy yearning for glory. Blessed are those who recognize this sign and honor it, for they are walking on holy ground, standing in the light of eternity as it prepares to break forth. When the body declares what the mouth may not, there comes a point in the life of the aged where the body, that faithful tent, which has weathered storms and carried the soul through decades, begins to speak louder than the voice itself. It speaks not in words, but in weakness, not with sounds, but with symptoms. The outward man, once strong and upright, now begins to bend and crumble like an old oak yielding to the wind, and while the lips may say, "I'm fine," the frame tells a different story, one of exhaustion, frailty, and the slow but sure unraveling of the temporal. This is no ordinary weariness. This is not just age. This is the sacred signal that the vessel is nearing the shore, the last pages of the book are being turned, and the soul is quietly preparing for departure, even if the tongue has not yet confessed it aloud. It is often the body that announces what the heart is too humble to say, that the journey is nearing its end. The appetite that once welcomed every meal now recoils. The taste for delicacies fades. Meals become burdensome, not because of illness alone, but because the body is no longer asking to be fueled for tomorrow's labor. It is satisfied, it is tired, the organs slow, digestion grows difficult, and the desire for nourishment wanes. And we must not rush in to force, feed the body what it no longer seeks, for this is not starvation, it is a letting go. The soul no longer depends on bread, but begins to hunger for the bread of life. The physical thirst declines because the spirit begins to thirst for the living water that never runs dry. Unexplained weight loss may appear, often gradually, subtly like a leaf falling from a branch without wind. The world may panic and cry out for treatments and diets, but the wise heart recognizes it for what it is, the body's sacred surrender. The hands grow thinner, the cheeks hollow, the skin more translucent, not in horror, but in holiness. For these are not signs of failure, but of fulfillment. The shell is emptying so that it might be filled anew with glory. Like a candle burning to its end, the diminishing wax is not decay, but devotion completing its course. Infections come more easily, colds linger longer, wounds heal slower. The immune system, once a stronghold, becomes a gate left open. Yet this vulnerability is not to be feared, it is not defeat, but a divine passage. The body, once called to war for survival, now lays down its sword. It ceases to fight because the battle is nearly done. And the greatest honor we can give is not to drag it into further battles it no longer desires, but to hold its hand as it lays down its arms and waits for the trumpet that sounds from the heavenly city. There are days when fatigue overtakes even the simplest tasks. Climbing stairs becomes a mountain. Getting out of bed feels like a voyage. Even dressing may require assistance, not because of laziness, but because the soul's energy is being conserved not for this life, but for the crossing over. The breath shortens, the pace slows, the eyes, though open, often seem to look elsewhere. A sacred distance grows, not only physically but spiritually, between the elderly soul and the pace of the world. They are no longer racing with us, they are pacing toward home. Even the sleep patterns change. They may sleep longer, and yet still feel tired. They may doze through the day and wake in the night. These are not disruptions to correct, but rhythms to respect. The body is unanchoring from time itself. Days and nights matter less to a soul already turning toward eternity. Let them rest, let them dream. For in the sleep of the dying, the soul often walks in places it cannot yet speak, of meadows of mercy, glimpses of glory, the hush of heaven preparing to receive a child returning home. You may notice subtle changes in voice, in posture, in touch. The voice grows softer, like a fading echo. Words may come slower or not at all. But this silence is not emptiness, it is a preparation. Many have found, as death draws near, that the mouth speaks less while the presence of the soul speaks more. A touch of the hand communicates more than 1,000 words. A glance from fading eyes can carry more weight than sermons, and if they speak often of peace, of readiness, of seeing loved ones already gone. These are not hallucinations, they are heralds. They are not confusion, they are communion with the eternal. In many cases there comes what some call the rally, a brief moment or day when energy returns, clarity sharpens, and the dying person smiles, eats, or even speaks with unusual strength. Loved ones rejoice, thinking death has turned back, but it is not a recovery. It is grace, it is the parting gift, it is the soul rising to bless its family before stepping into forever. Do not be deceived, this final brightness often precedes the great ascent. When the body sings one last time, it is often because the angels are waiting just outside the door. In such sacred times, our calling is not to fix, but to serve, not to push, but to pray, not to prolong the inevitable, but to prepare the way. Bring comfort, not chaos. Bring quiet, not clamor. Light candles, not alarm. Read psalms aloud, sing gentle hymns, speak softly of heaven. Let the atmosphere be bathed in mercy, not medicine alone, for the body, though declining, is still the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we must honor it as such even in its last days. This is the third sign, when the body begins to say what the heart may not have the courage to confess: I am done with this world. And the wise, the prayerful, the discerning will not argue with that voice. Instead, they will nod, hold that frail hand, and whisper, Well done. You have fought the good fight. You may rest now. The angels are near. To the world, these signs are medical. To the soul, they are miraculous. The body, that old servant, is not breaking, it is bowing. It is bowing before its final king. And as it bows, let us gather around it, not with tears of panic, but with eyes that see eternity just beyond the veil. For when the body declares what the mouth may not, heaven itself begins to prepare the room, the robe, and the welcome. When the heart begins to settle its accounts, there comes a holy season in the life of an aged soul when the heart turns inward with deep and quiet intent, not to reminisce for entertainment, but to reckon for eternity. This is not a casual recollection of memories, nor a sentimental journey through the past. It is something far deeper. It is the soul beginning to settle its accounts, not in fear of judgment, but in pursuit of peace. The hands may be frail, the voice may tremble, the body may be failing, but the heart, oh, the heart, begins to rise to its highest work. It takes inventory of its days. It opens long, closed ledgers of conscience. It searches its own story with the light of God's mercy in one hand, and the longing for release in the other. For as the breath shortens and the days grow quiet, the heart understands what time has never fully taught, that what we carry into eternity must be light enough for the soul to bear. In these sacred hours we see the soul perform its final labor, not in the field of toil, but in the quiet of reflection. The aged person, once concerned with survival, status, or schedules, now becomes occupied with something far greater: unfinished apologies, unreleased forgiveness, blessings not yet spoken, and truths not yet passed on. They begin to speak of moments long past, not for nostalgia's sake, but because their soul remembers what it needs to make right. A name arises they have not mentioned in decades, and a tear follows it. They reach for a letter, a photograph, a voice they once silenced. The world may see this as confusion, but heaven knows better. This is reconciliation. This is repentance. This is redemption taking its final steps on earth before it walks in glory. The elderly often speak less of possessions and more of people. They stop talking about the things they built and start speaking of the people they broke or blessed. Their hearts desire to mend what time and pride have left frayed. An old father seeks to reconcile with a distant son. A mother asks for a child once rejected. A friend recalls a betrayal they wish to confess or forgive. These moments are not to be interrupted or explained away. They are divine appointments, not just for the dying, but for the living. When such a heart reaches out, we must listen, not with ears alone, but with souls, for eternity is speaking, and if we do not hear it, we miss the most holy part of life's ending. The settling of accounts is not always public. Sometimes it is internal silent tears in the night, whispered prayers of surrender, final confessions made not to man, but to God. The aged may stare long into the dark, not in fear, but in communion. You may find them sitting alone, eyes lifted, lips moving without sound, as if speaking to someone invisible, and indeed they are. They are unburdening their hearts not to empty space, but to the very one who will receive them. In these moments the veil is thinner, the eternal is closer. Their prayers carry weight not just for themselves, but for generations to come. A grandmother prays for her children's children. An old man blesses his lineage with trembling hands, not knowing how far his words will travel in time. This is legacy in its purest form, not wealth, not fame, but spiritual inheritance. Sometimes you will hear them utter phrases like, "I just want everyone to know I love them," or "tell them I'm sorry," or "make sure they remember the Lord." These are not weak words, they are final commands from a soul readying itself for the throne. Take them seriously, write them down. These are not just sentiments, they are soul, settlement, eternal preparation. They no longer care for pride or position. The heart, once stubborn, now softens like wax in the presence of sacred fire. The soul, once distracted, now concentrates all its remaining strength on what matters most: love, mercy, humility, and truth. Even more profound is the dying saint's desire to bless. With every last breath, many seek to leave words behind not just for closure, but for impartation. They are not merely saying goodbye, they are handing over their mantle. A patriarch places his hands on his family one by one, blessing them in the name above all names. A matriarch speaks scripture over her children's heads, planting seeds for harvest she will not live to see. This is not the end, this is the moment when the heart pours out everything it was meant to give, and those who receive it are not simply beneficiaries of affection, they are stewards of legacy. There is also a settling of accounts with self. The dying do not always seek reconciliation with others, sometimes it is with their own conscience. Regrets surface not to torment, but to be laid down. Decisions long buried rise to the surface, but rather than panic there is a holy stillness. They begin to see their life in full, the brokenness and the beauty, the pain and the purpose, and they bring it all before God. This is not morbid, it is miraculous. For when the heart lays its entire story at the feet of mercy, the burden is lifted, and peace enters where fear once dwelt. The soul that does this is not diminished, it is completed. You will often notice a kind of spiritual clarity during this time. Things they once found difficult to understand now seem simple. The doctrines they once debated now become lifelines. The questions they once asked now fall away like autumn leaves. The only question that remains is, am I ready to meet him? And for the one who has settled their accounts, the answer is not only yes, but come. This readiness is not stoic, it is joyous. The heart that is settled does not tremble at the river's edge, it rejoices. It knows that the one who waits on the other side is not a judge alone, but a father, and he waits not with condemnation, but with open arms. This is the fourth sign, when the heart, often before the lips admit it, begins to settle its accounts. It is the soul's sacred audit. It is the final stewardship. It is the moment when eternity draws near enough to reorder every priority, silence every argument, and flood the heart with the peace that passes understanding. It is not weakness. It is the greatest strength a person can display to end life, not clinging to bitterness or fear, but having made peace with God, with man, and with oneself. And when that work is done, oh, how sweet is the rest that follows! When heaven becomes more real than the present hour, there comes a sacred moment in the life of the elderly, and only those who have walked long and far upon this weary earth ever truly encounter it, when heaven begins to eclipse the present hour. Not as a mere theological concept, not as a poetic hope recited in sermons, but as a palpable, near, undeniable reality. The heart begins to turn away from what is seen and fixed upon what is unseen, not with effort, but as if drawn by an invisible cord. This world, once so full of detail and desire, begins to blur, and the next world, long spoken of in faith, comes into focus. Their words change, their gaze lifts, their thoughts seem elsewhere, not distracted, but directed, not delusional, but deeply aware. They are still with us, yet increasingly distant, as though they are straddling two realms, one foot in time, the other already stepping into eternity, and it is not strange to them. It is peace, it is homecoming. It is as if the veil that once separated the soul from glory has thinned, and the light behind it begins to shine faintly, softly, irresistibly through. You will often hear them speak of people who are no longer here, loved ones who passed years ago, yet now seem present to them. They might whisper names into the air with affection, or stretch out a hand toward what cannot be seen with natural eyes. The world may call it confusion, but there is a clarity that transcends the physical. These are not fading minds but awakened spirits. For the dying do not lose awareness, they gain a higher one. They begin to sense what we cannot, hear what we do not, and see what we are not yet allowed to see. It is not madness. It is mercy. The soul is being gently introduced to the reality of heaven before fully departing for it. The glimpses are given not to alarm, but to prepare, to assure, to anchor the heart in hope, even as the body lets go of dust. In this holy season, heaven becomes not just an idea, but a destination with detail, a place of faces, of music, of beauty untold. They might describe light as they've never seen before, or mention voices singing, though no one is in the room. Some speak of fields, rivers, or gates, images known to the soul, if not the mind. Others simply smile, as if comforted by what they cannot explain. These are not hallucinations, they are revelation. Heaven is coming into view. It is not entering from a distance, it is unfolding from within. The very nearness of glory causes the soul to lose interest in the trivial. What once mattered possessions, positions, accolades no longer holds their gaze. Their focus shifts to the things that cannot be measured: forgiveness, love, peace, eternity. The clutter of the temporal is being cleared from their eyes to make way for the radiance of what is to come. You may see them grow quiet for long hours, not in depression, but in devotion. They are listening not to our voices, but to a greater one. They may become tearful without sorrow, smiling without cause, praying without word. These are signs of communion too deep for explanation. The soul is being fed from a heavenly table. It is no longer satisfied with earthly food. The music of this world fades, for a sweeter melody has begun. If you sit near, you will feel it, the weight of eternity entering the room, not dread but glory, not fear but familiarity. The dying person is not encountering the unknown, they are returning to what the soul has always longed for. There may come a moment, and oh, how often it happens when they speak as if they are already there. It's so beautiful, they say, or I see them, or even he's coming for me. These utterances are not to be dismissed. They are echoes from the threshold, they are confirmations that the gate is open. They are not saying goodbye to us as much as they are saying hello to another world. The clarity they display in those moments, sometimes even after days of silence, is not from this world. It is borrowed from eternity. They are given a final strength not to remain, but to cross, and we must let them go, not in despair, but in honor. For when heaven becomes more real than this life, then the soul has found its compass. To those who love them, these moments are bittersweet. The body remains, but the presence feels half-lifted. The conversations grow quieter, their grip weakens, but their peace deepens. And in those sacred final days or hours, we do not lose them, they simply walk ahead. They are not fading into nothing, they are rising into everything. The things they once clung to, their home, their schedule, their health, all fall away like war, not garments, and in their place comes a longing that cannot be quenched by anything on earth. The longing is not for life continued, but for life completed, for the eternal rest that no medicine, no therapy, no earthly comfort can offer. Let us not resist this holy moment. Let us not anchor them to earth with fear when heaven is pulling with promise. Our role is not to demand their return, but to prepare for their release. Speak gently to them. Read words of heaven aloud of the Lamb, of the river of life, of the saints in white. Sing softly of the old hymns that speak of home, of peace, of rest. Pray not for delay, but for a joyful crossing. and when they finally slip away, and oh, how silently they often go, we will know that they did not die. They departed. They left the temporal to dwell in the eternal. Their absence here is only proof of their presence there. This is the fifth and final sign, when heaven becomes more real than the present hour. It is not a sign of the end, but of the beginning. It is the sacred pull of the eternal overtaking the flicker of time. It is not a shadow descending, but the morning star rising in the soul. The body may be in the room, but the spirit has already seen the face it was made for. And when that vision becomes more precious than all the sights of earth, when the sounds of angels silence the clamor of men, when the heart chooses eternity over every remaining breath, then know that the time is near. The journey is ending, the joy is about to begin.